Thanks everybody for taking some time today to hang out with us and learn a little bit more about LeoAFO. Just wanted to go through the introductions again. I'm Drew, certified prosthetist orthotist with LeoPoly. LeoPoly is the parent company. We have LeoShape is our orthotics and prosthetics division, and today we'll be covering LeoAFO with a special sneak peek of LeoKAFO at the end. So stick around for that, and I'll show you some of the beta stuff that we're doing for KAFOs, which I'm really excited to share today. So just to give you a little recap on LeoAFO, I think most people whose names are on the call, I think you guys have seen the software before. Maybe you're already using it. I just want to go through a quick run through on the basics and for people that aren't familiar with it. But then really quickly, I want to transition into some of the newer features and more advanced workflows that we're working towards. So we're trying to launch some new tools recently, and we've updated a lot of features to make things just a little bit easier, a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner, a little bit smoother as you're going through the design process. And you know, one of the things that's really apparent to me, you know, I'm really lucky in this position where I get to talk to people all over the world and kind of learn how people are doing AFO fabrication in all sorts of different environments. And one of the things that always stands out to me is there's always a variety of ways that people are fabricating, different goals, different materials, different timelines, different price constraints, and things like that. And, you know, not a lot of people are 3D printing. A lot of people are still using CNC. A lot of people are still using plaster. People are still trying to figure out different ways of scanning. So we're trying to accommodate really where everybody is at and all the different types of workflows, all the different types of devices that exist, and the different demands that are really placed on a design software. So I want to go through that today just to show, you know, there's two primary ways that you can use LeoAFO. One is going to be like a cast correction to modification and then export for CNC milling. But one of the interesting things that I've seen is some people are starting to say, well, you know, I used to CNC mill, but now I can actually FDM print my rectified positive model. And that's a really interesting use case that we're seeing more and more of, is people who are using the positive model export actually in a printing configuration. The other one obviously is going through the software, using all the features that LeoAFO offers to make an extruded shell that is ready for printing. And so whether it's FDM printing, SLS printing, or multi-jet fusion, some sort of powder bed printing, I think is really one of the most common things that we're seeing. But more and more people are having good success with FDM printing as well. So I want to touch on a little bit of how to use the software and optimize kind of your exposure within the software, whether you're going to be doing a CNC workflow or a printed workflow. So just to get you, you know, oriented to the software, it is a guided workflow. And so you're going to walk through these steps up here where there's going to be an import screen. You're going to work with your scan, place some landmarks, get things oriented. You're going to spend a little bit of time in this Mesh Edit tab. That's going to be where all your modifications, rectifications are done. And then if you want to do trim lines or 3D printed features, advanced tools like struts and toe plates and things like that, that's all going to be under the Design tab. So to get started, I've imported my foot scan. And it can be either an AFO, it can either be an OBJ file or an STL file. And real quick, I'm just going to mention that we do have a chat window here. So please, if you have a question, feel free to pop it in there, and I'll try to answer them as we go along. Okay, so LeoAFO, I got my scan file. I can orient it, I can scale it, I can clean it and crop it. This scan came in pretty clean, so I'm just going to skip ahead and jump straight into the landmark application. The first 3 points are going to orient my scan, and the automatic detection algorithm will try to find some of the landmarks. go through and complete the last couple of landmarks here. And I am now ready to start designing. The measurement table has automatically populated. If you can see these blue lines on the model here, that's where the measurements are being pulled from. If you don't want this measurement, but you want to take your own manual measurement, you can always open up the measurement tab and click a 3-point girth. So for example, if you wanted to make your own 3-point measurement around the malleoli, you didn't like the way that ours automatically calculated, you could calculate yours as well. And with all these measurements, you can always take a manual measurement and then pin it so that it shows up here in the measurement chart as you're designing, which is really nice. You can also hide and show those measurements as you go along. So I'm just going to hide that measurement. Another one that's really nice is the section measurement. So with one click, I'll get 4 different measurements reported here. So I have a perimeter, or that section girth. I have an AP, so a front to back width, and then an ML, a side to side width. Also, I have a height to floor. What's really nice about this tool is if you have like a measurement chart and somebody says, hey, I took my measurement at, let's say it was 400. So we're, I don't know if we can go up to 400 on this one. Let's say it's 360. There we go. So at 360, what is our measurement going to be? And I can change the AP and the ML, the way that that loop lays on the model, and I can lock that measurement in case I want to save it for later, or I can just hide it if I don't need it any longer. Okay, so that's a nice tool with the section measurement tool. Another thing I wanted to point out is the way that you can do buildups in kind of 2 different ways. One is kind of the quick and dirty manner. And what's nice about the quick and dirty manner, some people like this because it maybe feels a little bit more like you're used to when you got your plaster bucket and you're just kind of slopping things on in 8 different locations all at the same time. What you can do is set an amount. So let's say we want to do 5 millimeters. And with the brush tool, I can go through and highlight the different regions that I want to add buildups to all at the same time. So let's say I want to do something here, maybe a little navicular, change my brush size. Let's say we want to do a first Achilles insertion and maybe a base here and here. And what I can do is I can inflate all of these all at the same time. So if I go ahead and add that material, it will add the 5 mils all at once to those locations. So that's one really nice, quick and dirty way to add some buildups. And then obviously you can come in with the smoothing tool and clean things up a little bit. If you start taking off too much material there, you can just lower your strength setting and it will just do more of a fine sanding instead of, you know, removing a whole bunch of material. All right, one thing I wanted to highlight today is we've updated the channel tool. So the channel tool has the ability to add a trough modification or a channel modification into the anterior direction, and then I'll show you what some of the updated templates are a little bit later. We've added some new features here, which is really nice. What's great about this tool is you can say, okay, where do you want this trough modification to be added? And so you can control, you know, how far down the leg. If you just want it to be a calf cuff, for example, if you want it to be all the way down the leg, if you want it to also include the ankle, you could add this modification twice. So if you wanted to have one where it's a proximal modification, and then you can open the tool, add it a second time, and just isolate it to the ankle, for example, you could do that as well. So I'm going to control it where it goes most of the way down the foot here. And as I change the extrude amount, you can basically see how proud or how strong is this modification going to be. And you can change distally and proximally are independent controls. So you can basically say, I want to have it stronger and more proud at the top or at the bottom. And that's a nice new feature so that you can kind of tailor that to the leg or to the design of the orthosis. Additionally, we can change the curvature. So you'll see here, I can change how this top edge is shaped. So if I don't want to have a transition and I don't want to have any curvature, I'm going to have a really sharp shelf. But I can break that curvature. I can break that edge with by introducing some curve, and I can also break that edge by introducing some transition length. So that's a nice way to make it look a little bit nicer and clean it up a little bit. The same thing is available down distally on the foot as well. So I can change, if I want to have, for example, a really sharp edge for some reason, you can do that. I can also curve it and blend it in and have a nicer transition. Also, the last big modification that's available here is changing the boundary angle. How much does it wrap around the leg? So if, for example, I'm looking at a left foot here, the lateral side, you'll see I can use the lateral boundary angle to expand and open up that addition that I've added, or I can wrap it in more tightly and tuck it in up against the leg by wrapping that in with the lateral boundary angle slider. Same thing's available on the medial side, so I can tuck it in and make it, really more contoured, more aggressive, or more open. Once you've got your channel modification where you want it to be, click apply. Wait a couple of seconds because it is running a remesh and a recalculation, and it's going to smooth everything before it applies it. So one little tech tip there is when you click apply, just be patient, wait for it to run the full calculation and for that window to disappear. And then you can open up your next tool and start doing some work. If you rush it and you close that tab before it actually runs the calculation, you might just lose your work if you kind of are rushing the program. So I want you to just wait 1 second there and it will apply it and you can move on. Okay, so that's the channel tool. And then obviously if we go into the design tab, so once you've finished your mesh edits, and if we were going to go and 3D print something, for example, you could open up the design selector, pick one of our designs. For example, popular one is like a short articulated Ritchie style device here. And with this tool, you can pick where your tamarack joints are going to go, how do they conform to the model, and you can independently place those tamarack joint positions. So you can change the AP and the ML of those joint locations, and you can change how are the curves going to be, the cutoff curve, how is that going to be shaped? It's also obviously going to be really important to establish your trim lines and your cutoff lines here so that they're clinically relevant and accurate. I can also do the same thing on the lateral side. So I'm going to switch to lateral joint mode and optimize that position for that tamarack joint as well. And then just do a little comparison here, make sure everything looks groovy. And now I can generate my AFO. In a couple of seconds, I'll have something that is really a print ready file. So with SLS or MJF powder bed printing technology, this is something that you could send right to the printer, and it already has the cavity for the tamarack and the hardware. You can change the global thickness of these shells really easily. You can also change the thickness of the joint caps, and you can also modify all these features such as the reinforcement bars, the rear foot post, the tapering of the thinness of the foot plate, the location and width and height of these slots for the straps, and also the perforation pattern here. You can control the layout, the sizing, even the structures. You can change it to have different cell types there. So this is, I think, becoming something that I've seen a couple of people have FDM printed these devices, and I've been really impressed with the final results. So things like this are possible. Obviously, when you powder bed print these, there's some more optimizations that you can take advantage of. You know, variable thicknesses, tapered trim lines, you know, some smaller, finer features are just going to show up better on a powder bed print. But obviously, that technology is a little bit more expensive. Not everybody has access to it. But for those who are in the US, I know Formlabs has recently launched a pay-for-service thing where you can basically drag and drop a file and just order a print from them, and their prices are really aggressive and affordable. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, you can just Google Formlabs. I think it's called Form Now, and you could basically export this file. So you could pick as an STL or an OBJ file, export this out, drag it and drop it, and have it in like 4 or 5 days for, you know, 60 or 80 bucks or something like that. So that's a really interesting workflow that's just kind of recently been made available from the Formlabs team. Obviously, their SLS machines are smaller, so you can really only get away with a short device like this with a short footplate, or pediatric-sized devices. They can get maxed out really quickly on that smaller build volume, but it is a really neat opportunity if your device does fit there. Okay. Anybody have questions? Let me just check the chat here real quick, see if there's anything going on. All right, nothing yet. Let me know if you guys got any questions. I'm going to move on to another demo here. This one was done with a iPhone scan, so we're going to have to do a little bit of cleaning on it. I think I may have shown this one previously, but it's just a good example of kind of what's possible. So what I want to do is use my lasso tool, highlight some of these extra triangles that don't really need to be in here. We're going to delete them, and then there's some pretty big holes that we need to take care of. So I can use the fill holes tool, I can smooth it, I can remesh it, and I can move on kind of to the next step. Same thing here. The first 3 points are going to help automatically orient the scan, and then the rest of those points are just going to help line everything up for the posture correction tool and all the later modifications as well. I'm going to double check my landmarks. Looks like that one got off a little bit, and we'll probably optimize that one a little bit more as well. Okay, so now that I have those, there is this auto posture correction button. So when I click that, it's going to bring everything to 90 degrees and 90 degrees. You can see there's also some lumps and some bumps. And so I'm going to open up my smoothing tool, go to the sculpt smooth. And if I turn off preserve volume, I want to lower my strength down a little bit because it's going to be really aggressive. But then I can just come in and really quickly take care of some of these lumpy and bumpy areas. You can see just how well it can kind of handle that. And then I'll turn back on preserve volume, bump the strength back up, bump the radius back up, and then just use that to kind of blend things together a little bit more nicely here. As I click and drag my mouse around, it's just going to blend things in there a little bit for me. Okay, so as we go through that process, now again, I could add a variety of things, different buildups. For example, if I want to do a medial malleolus buildup, I can do that. If I want to do lateral malleolus, position that into the right spot and add that. Do a quick channel modification, for example, and run that down the leg. Apply that. And actually, we're going to take that away, and I want to show you one thing that is a new trimline template. If you're going to be doing a CNC workflow, it's called the proximal circular template here. And what you can do is you can add your toe box. So with the toe box tool, I'm able to add height and width. I can ramp it, and I can change the transition of how that toe box gets added to the device. I also have this circular trim line here, and so I can control the layout of this trim line. So let's say I wanted to do something in like a CNC workflow where I wanted to have an AFO that looked a little something like this. I could really quickly modify that trim line. And then I have this new thing called pipe mode. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take this trim line. It's going to make a pipe with a certain flare height and flare radius and a flare profile. And so when I generate this, this will make this blue file that is something that we could use in a CNC workflow where I could export this, have a really nice, clear, flared edge trim line here for cutoff, and then it will identify where that proximal edge is going to be. I saw a couple questions come in here. Let's take a look and see. All right, first question, can we split an AFO into two medial lateral interlocking parts to enable manufacturing on smaller build volume SLS printers? That's a great question. It's a tool that we actually have that exists on our ShoeLath platform where you can split the model into a couple of pieces. It hasn't been implemented into the AFO system yet, but that's a good idea. It would be really interesting. I know it is possible to export this model and then cut it in another CAD system, and then you could take advantage of it that way. It doesn't exist in LeoAFO right now, but it's something that we could probably add to our development list. The other question is, do you have the ability in the AFO design to enclose the first MTP joint in the design? Yes, you can change the trim lines pretty easily, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. So if you're doing like a CNC workflow, you could export this with your toe box, your modifications, and your flared edge trim line here, and you could send that out to your carver. If, however, we're going to be doing something that is more of a printed design, we're going to switch here, and one of the questions was, can you enclose the first met head? So we're going to edit the design. We're going to open up the outline tool, which is the primary trim line. And I can also show the landmarks here. So you can see, it's a little hard to tell here. When I turn those landmarks on, you can see that's where I marked my first met head. And so if I go back to my toe box tool, I can make it so you can see through that a little bit. And you can see where I marked my first met head. So if I edit my design, I have my outline tool here. I can really easily modify the trim line so that it will encapsulate that first met head and still come down the length of the toe box here. And then I'll just smooth out my toe box trim line. And then when I generate that, we should have a nice long medial wall and some containment of that first met head. So hopefully that answers the question there. Let's see, we got a couple more questions coming in here. Okay. First question is, can you add different orthotic joints to the scan? Right now, what we have built into the system is small, medium, so the pediatric, the medium, and the large tamarack joints. Those are the ones that are built in by default. I'd be curious, Harsh, if you could add which other joints would be important to you, because we've had lots of requests for, a variety of joints. There's so many joints on the market. The question is really, which ones make the most sense for 3D printing? So I'd be curious to know what joints you're looking to use there. Another question is, can we do an offset between the leg and the AFO to add foam? That's a great question. Really easy one to answer, actually. Under that primary outline tool, there's the general thickness. That will change the thickness of your shell. So if I want to have a thicker shell, if I have a bigger patient, I can jump up the general thickness and the whole thickness of my shell is going to increase. So you can see I have it nice and thick here. And then if I drop that down to 2 mils, you know, just in a matter of seconds, I'll have a nice thinner shell. Additionally, you can see that there is about a 2 mil gap right now. So that's the general offset here. If I remove that gap and I regenerate, it's now going to wrap right up against the model, and it's going to be really tight fitting. I can bump that up to 5 mils, so you can have up to a 5 mil padded liner there. And that is going to be a global 5 mil offset of your entire device. Okay, so that is something that is possible. All right, Sam made a nice long comment here. Give me a second to read this. When we scan the foot, we first edit the model in the software smoothing, and then we continue to the next step where we select the anatomical landmarks. However, sometimes I may apply too much smoothing. It becomes difficult to clearly identify the exact positions of certain landmarks. This led to a problem. Medial and lateral mal points were each shifted by about 1 centimeter. Interesting. Requires remaking. Unfortunately, that's too bad. Yeah, for this reason, I would be extremely helpful if the scan edit section included original reference markers or guides. Yeah, so one thing that I don't know if this is exactly what you're getting at, Sim, but a feature that we've had requested that we're hoping to add in the next couple of updates is the ability to reference your like original scan and then have a ghost overlay of any modifications that you've made, so you can see how much you've changed the model from the original. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're getting at, but it is a hotly requested item to be able to have a comparison between your original and whatever modifications that you've made. So that is something. And you make a good point. You know, the smoothing tool, you can change the strength slider on it. So a lot of times I'll keep that strength slider low, and then as you click and drag, it's only going to remove a little bit of material. If you have that strength slider up really high, it can remove quite a bit of material very quickly, and so you do want to be careful with that. You also said something positive. Our PP filament prints, fuzzy skin. All right, that's great. Glad to hear. Keep up the good work, Sam. That's awesome. All right, I wanted to jump into one more example here. And this is just an example of a scan that has, this was a mold, a plaster mold. So I poured this model. You can see the marks. It was captured with the scan, with the OBJ file and the scan texture. So over here under visual settings, I can turn that texture layer on and off. So I can see my marks that I made. And that will help me as I go through the process here. So as I clean this, I can smooth it. I can remesh it. It'll make the texture a little lower resolution, but still useful. And then I can move on to that next step. And then now this is one of the things, so just kind of pointers that can help you on your digital journey here. If you have an OBJ scan and you have marks, it will help you find your landmarks or find your buildup locations. Like I circled, you know, where do I need to add some material here? Additionally, I use these little foam stickers. So I've seen people even use like googly eyes or things from the craft store. It doesn't really matter what it is. Play-Doh even. I've seen people put Play-Doh against the skin and then wrap it with some plastic wrap. It's just going to give your bony spots some additional height, and it will help you locate them during your digital scanning process. So you can see that these bumps were actually foam dots that I stuck to the skin, and it just helps you during the landmark process find where everything is a little bit easier. So I can place my first, my fifth, and my center of the heel quite easily. And then I have my nice big marker for my medial MPJ1. Medial top is nice and marked already. Lateral top, lateral MPJ5 is already marked, and the ankle front is nice and easy to find. Also, you can then see how quickly or how accurately you can get with your malleolus marks here. And I'm going to go ahead and call that good. Okay, so now when I go and I do my buildups, I can add, for example, a lateral malleolus buildup here, and I can get it to basically match right to whatever marks that I've made or I've predetermined, and I can go ahead and add or remove material quite easily in that area. Okay. Same thing if I want to do it on the lateral side. Oh, sorry. Let's try it again here. All right. Put that on there, stretch that out where we need it to be, and we should be able to add and remove the material here. And again, if I need to turn off the texture layer, I can do so. And with the smoothing tool, this is one of those situations where I might want to turn off preserve volume, but I'm going to put my strength down really low, and then I can come through here. And even then you can see I took off a little bit too much material, so I'm going to back that off. I'm going to lower the strength even more, and then I'm going to try again, and that'll take care of those nice big divots that I have there really quickly. Okay, so go through, touch up the model a little bit, get things nice and smoothed over, and I'd go back to preserve volume mode so I can blend these in a little bit more nicely without removing too much material there. And just kind of flying through here quickly. Let's see, I saw another couple questions come in here. All right. Okay, sounds good. So the last thing here that I wanted to touch on is again, that channel tool. There's another version of that channel tool called the flared edges tool. So I can put that flared edge tool on the posterior of my model, and I can change where that is located. So I can basically make a little shelf buildup in the back here, and this will give me a nice flared edge to put my trim line on for the proximal posterior of my calf section. So what I can do is I can add some shelf here, and I would recommend, really you want to have more because you can always drop your trim line short, but if you don't build a big enough shelf out here, then sometimes you might feel like you didn't get enough flare. So this is one way to add a flared edge, is you can add this shelf on here, and then with the curvature and the transition tools, so I can change, how flat is that shelf going to be or how curved. So I'm just going to kind of match it up to like the anatomy of my leg, the width of my leg, and then you can change how sharp is that transition length going to be. So do you want a lot of material added on? Do you want like a more sharp edge? I usually go for something a little bit more sharper so that it doesn't add too much material down the length of the leg. And then when I apply that, that will add that little shelf to the back. And then when I select my design, for example, something like this, I can, let's switch it to a shorter one for an easier example here. When I edit that design with my outline, I can then really easily raise my trim line up so that it matches into that flared edge there. And then when I generate, you'll see this posterior section has a nice flare to it now. So it has a nice flared edge off the backside there, following that little shelf that I made for it. Okay, And last but not least, I wanted to do a little sneak peek into the KAFO world. So this is something that is available for beta testing if you're interested. Right now, it's mainly supporting CNC workflows. So it's going to be something where you're going to be carving this afterwards. It's not for printed devices yet, but that's something that we're hoping to add. And it's going to work and it's going to look and feel the same way as LeoAFO. So I did my landmarks. You can see the landmarks that are on here right now. Obviously, there's going to be some more thigh landmarks that get added. You can show and hide the texture as well. And there's a lot of the same tools that are available, but there's been some new things that have been added in the design steps. So I want to show that off here in 1 second. So we've got to do a little bit of smoothing to get this guy ready to go here. I'm going to do a couple of rounds of global smoothing. And then I can do some sculpt smoothing. And like I said, this is where you can toggle on and off that preserve volume switch and really take advantage of the more aggressive smoothing algorithm. With the preserve volume turned off, it will really smooth things up quickly and nicely. For example, I have this, cutoff tube that I need to get rid of. So if I bump the strength up on that, it's going to really quickly remove it. And then if I want to turn the preserve volume back on, bump the strength up, and then blend things together, it will keep that the overall volume of my leg preserved, but I was able to get rid of that cutoff tube pretty quickly. So that's a nice feature to be able to go back and forth between, heavy. It's basically like you're switching from a sanding screen to more of a sure form that's going to really remove a lot of material really quickly. Okay, so a couple things have been updated even more so with the channel tool here, so I wanted to highlight that. Now there's a couple of different presets in the drop-down here. So I can say I want a top channel, I want a calf channel, or I want a full-length channel. So that's nice to have the addition of the presets. And even more than that, you can change, do you want this to be a back modification? So if it's a step-through design, you could add it posteriorly. You can even add it as a lateral or a medial thing. So, if you have a really unique scenario where you're doing a side loading situation, you could add that channel in that manner. So you can switch it from front to back. So for example, if I do a full, I can switch that to the back and have a rear entry design. I can keep it on the front. And this is the way that the channel tool is going to be updated in the future, which is to have a proximal control zone. So you can basically set where does that top boundary start and where's the termination for the top line. You can control, again, the transition and the curvature of those additions. So if you want it to go all the way up, for example, and blend into that top edge, we can do that. And then you can also open up the distal control zone, and you can set how far down the foot do you want it to go. How big are those transitions again, and how much material is being added. So obviously you don't want to get too much material, get too crazy there, but you can do that with the distal parameters. And then you have your side control, which is how much, how tight to the model is it, or is it flared in or flared out? You can see I can wrap it in or pull it out. And then the other one that's really nice now is you now have the option to add a toe box in this step. So if I add the toe box here, I have all the same controls as previously. So if I want to ramp it, if I want to add some length, for example, I can go ahead and do that. Maybe add a little bit of extra height in there as well. I can apply that. And then now what's nice is it's going to take a couple of seconds to remesh and add all that big channel, all those extra triangles that just got added, and also the toe box. And then once it's all added in there, I can come back in with my smoothing tool. So this is something that people have requested for a while, which is the ability to smooth your toe box transitions and to have the ability to use the smoothing tool even after you've added your toe box. So now that you can add your toe box and you can smooth it up afterwards, that is something that's new and improved. Okay, so now we have our model like this. We can jump into the design world, and there's multiple things here with blocks and struts and different things that are available. I just want to highlight one thing or a couple of things here. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Let's see here. Okay, so if I use a template like this, for example, what it will have available, and this is a beta thing, so bear with me, it's not completely ready, but it's ready enough. I wanted to show it off and get some feedback, put it out there into the world here. Okay, so if I add in this template, we have these knee block tools now, and these knee block tools are something where you can position these structures here. So with this lateral, I can position these blocks similar to like my joint positioning, and then there's also one for the ankle block. And so I can set the position and the height of these where my joints are going to be, and I can control my trim lines. And so when I generate this model, what it's going to get me is a pipe outline all the way around. Oh, we need to fix some things here. Let's see what's going on. Oh, it's probably because that one's not on the model. Give me one moment here. Let's see if we can figure this one out. I think it might be, I put my landmark, my medial landmark wasn't in the right spot. Let me see if I can fix that. And there we go. That's up to date now. So let's try that one more time. That looks okay. My ankle block, see if we can get that into a better position. All right, and then if we generate that, hopefully that'll work this time. So what it will do is the trim lines will turn into a pipe outline so that you could have a clear understanding of where your cutoff zones are going to be. The knee and the ankle blocks are going to turn into flat zones that you can mount joints. And the toe plate and all your modifications are going to be added in there as well. This is a little rough. I'd need to spend a little bit more time with it, but I just wanted to show you, you know, what that looks like for the purposes of adding these new features to the KAFO beta version here. So if you are interested in trying out this this beta version, please let me know. And I just wanted to throw out a couple things there in terms of we will be at the American Academy of Orthotics and Prosthetics meeting in Nashville next week. We'll have a table there, so if anybody is going to be at the Academy meeting, please look us up. I'm also going to put a calendar link in the chat here, so if you guys are interested in setting up an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the software that I showed today. If you have questions, let's check and see. Zachariah asked about prosthetic sockets. The short answer is yes, we do. The long answer is it's not really ready and released to the public yet, so we can talk about that if that's something that's important to your group. It's something that we're hoping to build more on later in this year. Right now, it's not released as a consumer product. So we have foot orthotics, so LeoInsole, LeoAFO, and arm and spine, and also pet braces are all things that we have in the works right now. LeoAFO and LeoInsole are our two most developed platforms, so they're going to be the ones that we have the most users on. They're going to have the most features. The spine and the KAFO, the pet and the arm, they're all kind of in these strong beta versions where there's a lot of features, but they're not totally refined yet. So there's some limitations on each of those systems, but they're all based on the same really powerful CAD tool that's kind of driving all of our stuff. So there's a lot of potential for all those systems to grow in this next year. So if you're interested in learning more about that, my link is in the chat. You guys can set up a meeting. We can do a little bit more training. If you've not seen the software before and you want to learn more, please let me know. If you're currently using the software and you need a little bit of extra help, or you want to understand these new features or have access to some of these beta systems, please let me know as well. And I'll stick around here for a couple minutes if anybody has any more questions or wants some more clarification. I appreciate you all coming out today. And hopefully we can connect here soon. Please look us up if you're going to be at the Academy meeting, and we'll talk more. Stay tuned. I'm sure we'll do some more webinars later on in the year. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Thanks.